Big news today in the case of Peter Liang, the former NYPD officer who shot and killed AKAI GURLEY in a Brooklyn housing project stairwell. No prison time, probation, and community service. That's what a judge sentenced Liang to after reducing his charges just a couple of hours ago. Our own Dominic Carter live outside the courthouse with more. Dom?
Well, good evening to you, Richard. From the bench, the judge said he finds incarceration to be unnecessary for this one-time former rookie police officer.
No justice! No peace! No racist! Police! No justice! No peace! No racist! Police!
Tensions were high outside the courtroom and in. Peter Liang apologized to the GURLEY family. Then Judge Danny Chun dropped his manslaughter conviction down to criminally negligent homicide. No jail, 5 years probation, and 800 hours of community service. Counselor, can you describe how you feel at this hour?
Yeah, very mixed emotions. This was a good day for Peter Liang This was a good day for Peter Liang in a year and a half in which there haven't been very many good days. The judge found that his conduct was not reckless, that he was not aware of a risk, and the judge imposed a non-jail sentence on him.
I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in our justice system, but sadly I'm not surprised. Too many of our people are being held hostage by this criminal justice system. And the one time the family asks for that justice system to do right by their side, it failed.
Counselor, can you understand why some in the black community are upset tonight?
I do, but I said in my remarks that it has been 2 years, and people may tell me it's been a lifetime in this country, in which police officers have taken the lives of innocent people, many of them unarmed black men. And so I understand all of that. But what I tried to say, and what I think Judge Chun said, is Peter Liang is not them. This was not the intentional violation of someone's rights. And the hardest thing is when you have passions, and the people across the street have passions, the hardest thing is to appreciate that not every case is the same. And this case is very different. And the judge's decision today and the sentence today reflect the differences, and they're differences that Ken Thompson recognized, and he's to be congratulated for all that. I understand the anger. If you look at what's happened in this country in the last 2 years, anger is warranted. But my own feeling is it shouldn't be directed at Peter Liang.
And Richard, now while we're in the 6 o'clock hour, I want to give you a flavor, a sense of what's going on here. When you look diagonally across the street, you can see there are some protesters and a pen. Those are basically Asian American protesters here in support of Peter Liang. Right behind me are African American protesters, and police, they are trying to keep control. But from the beginning, this case has been one that has put a further wedge between communities. A headline in an Asian American media outlet reads, "One bullet, 2 victims," how ex-NYPD cop Peter Liang's conviction galvanized Chinese Americans.
We are coming for Peter Liang, justice for Peter Liang. That's for accident. He's not trying to kill the GURLEY.
Mr. GURLEY?
Yeah, GURLEY.
Why do you say Mr. Liang is scapegoated?
Because the incident was pure accident. It's not a criminal. When he pulled out his gun, when he go to the building, pink house, he's not intent to kill anybody. Actually, he was opposite. He tried to protect someone.
Brooklyn District Attorney Ken Thompson is reacting tonight. Quote, "While our sentencing recommendation was fair under the unique circumstances of this case, we respectfully disagree with the judge's decision to reduce the jury's verdict and will fight to reverse it on appeal." Richard, GURLEY's aunt, as she left court today, yelled, no justice for AKAI Gurley. She warned justice would be served one way or another, and we can tell you for a fact that police are in standby throughout Brooklyn tonight. Reporting live from the courthouse, I'm Dominic Carter. Richard, let's go back to you.
Hey, Dom, let me ask you. I saw the statement that you read from D.A. Thompson. Isn't he trying to have this both ways? Because his own recommendation was no jail time. He was doing house arrest and probation. This judge's decision had probation and community services. Not a huge distinction in my eyes between the suggested sentencing or recommendation from the DA versus what the judge did today.
Richard, you hit the issue on the head. The district attorney, for his base in this community, he is under fire tonight from African Americans, and he is in a better position politically when he can constantly say to the community he is fighting for justice. There is no doubt about it. The district attorney has found himself, if you will, in a pickle and wants it both ways on this case, Richard.
And Dominic, you reported earlier that there was a meeting between Liang, well before today, and the Gurley family, and there was an apology. Certainly the understanding was that there will be a civil case attached to this. I thought that there was more of a meeting of the minds before today, because it seemed like the decision today at the courthouse caught the Gurley family off guard.
Completely, Richard. They did meet the mother of AKAI Gurley's daughter, met with former Officer Liang in the past, and it did seem to be, as much as possible as one could think under the circumstances, a meeting of the minds. But not today, because it was the belief that they felt that one-time Officer Liang was going to jail, and they felt that that was appropriate. So tensions are very much high tonight, Richard, and obviously we want to downplay any possible incident, but tensions were high here. Who knows what's going to happen in Brooklyn? Once it becomes dark tonight, there are a lot of angry people. There were a lot of angry Asian Americans across the street, a lot of angry African Americans, and it's just not a pretty situation, and it doesn't appear, Richard, where it's going to get better anytime soon.
All right, Dominic, thank you again. That Dominic Carter reporting live from the scene. Guys, this to me was curious how it was handled from the beginning, in that if the DA from Brooklyn didn't want to touch this, he had an out. Since these cases, it's now the Attorney General of New York can take these cases on basically with special prosecutor status. It doesn't have to be handled by the local DA, but Thompson insisted. He said he could get that indictment, which he did, and he could get that conviction, which he prosecuted for vigorously and got it, and then turn around and almost seemed to say, never mind, when it came to a suggested sentencing. Really surprising, at least, how he handled it, given how he started.
Yeah, there are no winners in this in any way, shape, or form, whether it's, least important the DA or the Attorney General, more importantly the families of both the officer and the victim. At the end of the day, law enforcement is entrusted with the training, a weapon, the authority, and it's got to be used judiciously and appropriately. In this case, obviously, it was not. On the heels of years now of violence that has been perpetrated against unarmed black men in particular and black women, this case really continues to poke at that bruise. And I don't know what to say other than the difficulty that both the family is going through and the officer. But again, at the end of the day, the burden rests a bit further with law enforcement, who are supposed to be trained to know when to use that weapon and when not to.
How the case was handled by prosecutors is in the context of Staten Island, the Garner case, Ferguson, all the other cases that we've seen. I think it's understandable that the DA in this case would go for the conviction, and you tip his hat for getting the conviction. But then it becomes a matter of what is justice in all of this. And if you change the ethnicities of the people involved, would it really be justice if the officer went to prison for this? I think he came to the conclusion that a lot of people did, which is probably not. And so getting the conviction but no jail time might be the best
Don't
way to
want to
split the baby.
relitigate it, but what happened after the shooting also was part of this narrative too. But anyway, just a tragedy, as you guys said, all the way around. Mike, Andrew, thank you very much. I got some local headlines on the other side of the break. Stay with us.